Welcome back. Now, Nigeria has emerged the 16th most affected country now by cybercrime in the world, according to a latest report released by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. The Internet Crime Report, which focused on the year 2020, listed Nigeria among the worst 20 with 443 complaints relating to internet crime last year. Now, within the year, victims lost $4.2 billion to business email compromise scams, romance schemes, investment fraud, and other similar crimes. But of this, business email compromise schemes was the costliest. Also, the FBI report showed that fraudsters took advantage of the year 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the most prevalent scheme seen during the pandemic was government impersonators. This report comes as the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Bawa Abdullahi, now raised concerns about the challenges the agency now is facing with cyber and financial crimes now as it relate to financial institutions. The EFCC boss said it is not surprising that some banks actually are complicit in financial crimes, and that the anti-graft agency is seeking to make bankers declare their assets. Joining me now to discuss more on this FBI report is Deji, who is a cybersecurity expert and the managing partner of Blue Rave Limited. Thank you very much, Mr. Deji, for joining us on the program. Let me start by asking you, I mean, you look at the picture painted by that FBI report, and of course, the comment from the EFCC chairman, no doubt, it appears cybercrime is a more serious issue than some of us are taking it, and than even the government is dealing with it.
Okay, yeah, good day everyone, and thanks for having me today. Well, cybercrime will continue to grow. We've always had this with us, and it will continue to grow, largely because we've not had so much will from the government to do more about it. Cybercrime, like with every other crime, is something that if you don't put the right measures in place to curb it or to reduce it, it will continue to grow. So the more it grows, we will continue to see some of these things, and these are the consequences of we neglecting this sector for a very long time.
Now, talking about neglecting the sector, would you say that, what would you say then about the Cybersecurity Act of 2015, which of course is an operational law against cybercrime in this country? You think the law does not go far enough?
Well, I think like most sectors in Nigeria, laws are we have enough laws to have enough legal framework within the country to get things done. The problem is enforcement. The problem is investing in the right tools and the right technology to combat some of this crime. The laws are always there, but if there's no enforcement, there's nothing the law can do. We can only provide them. The law has been provided, but then what's the level of enforcement? What's the level of detection that we've had over across the country? So yes, we have this, we have the law, we have all that, but if government is not investing enough in technology and empowering our security agencies to be cyber smart when it comes to cyber crime, then we will continue to face these consequences, irrespective of the legal framework we have as a country to combat this crime.
Now, when you say we're not investing in technology, you mean we're not putting in place the right technology to checkmate these cyber criminals?
Yes, we are not. You would agree with me that some of the biggest cyber criminals, or some of the biggest cyber crimes that have been solved across the country were actually due to international collaboration. Most of them, either from FBI or Interpol, have had to get involved and probably sent intelligence information to our security agencies here, which they acted on. Aside from the fact that we are not investing enough in technology, in terms of also manpower, we will look at EFCC, for example, and we'll say that, okay, with the scale of crisis we have, what's the capacity, what's the technical capacity in terms of manpower that an agency like EFCC, which is in the forefront of this crime, the forefront of combating this crime? What's the level of their manpower, not even just in the numbers, but also in the technicality, in their capacity? How far can they go in investigating some of this crime? And aside from that, we also look at our judiciary, because we still do not have a judiciary that is strong enough to prosecute electronic crime. That's why a lot of times we are still a country that is largely based on paper, meaning that we still depend so much on using paper and all that. So even in courts, you would realize that it's just due to COVID-19 and all that we are trying to now digitalize some of our legal processes across the country. But you will realize that up until now, we've largely been like more of a paper
Okay.
and
Now, other than the government putting in place, say, technology, so to speak, what about the private sector? Because you look at some of the reports that are out there. Take, for instance, the report by the Institute for Security Studies in 2018. It says commercial banks in Nigeria lost a cumulative 15 billion naira to electronic fraud and cybercrime. And you listen to the EFCC chairman recently. He did raise the issue of banks. Banks are consistently coming under attacks, even though they are not reporting it. We know they are consistently coming under attacks, and so much amount of money is lost, through the banking system as a result of cybercrimes. Does it mean the banks in Nigeria are also not doing enough to prevent their systems from getting attacked, from people essentially stealing from their banks electronically?
Yeah, well, I think for the financial institutions, I think in a good way, some level of measures are in place to reduce some of this crime. But then you would agree with me that, like we would always say, when it comes to cybercrime, the weakest link in cybercrime is the human factor. We largely have a population of people that are not largely very educated when it comes to cybercrime. Up until in recent times, when we started having issues with ATM theft and all that, when we talk about Yahoo, or we talk about cybercrime, largely people feel that, okay, it's a crime that maybe you're duping somebody abroad, you're duping somebody in US and all that. But as more and more Nigerians migrate to using digital platforms for their financial transactions,
which is becoming very common.
Yes, we are seeing a change in behavior, change in behavioral pattern of some of these cyber crimes, because it's actually easier for you to commit cyber crime in Nigeria, within Nigeria, than for you to commit across the country, because you know that, okay, there are some level of law enforcement in place over there to either get you today or sometimes in future. But here we do not have that framework yet, so people would rather target you. And it's even easier here, because all you have to do is probably just send out some random SMS or send out some random emails to people that were likely fall victim. And there are a lot of victims that would that usually don't even report this, and they just keep quiet about it. So for the financial institutions, I think we can't emphasize enough human capacity development, both for staff of the financial institutions and bank customers.
I get you now.
The losses are on both sides.
I get you absolutely. Now, something I want to ask you: which is the common cyber criminal activity we have in Nigeria? Of course, we know of phishing, which is quite common. We know of ransomware attack. We know of identity theft and all of that. From your own experience now as a cybersecurity expert, which is common in this country, and how can people protect themselves?
I think the most common one is phishing. Interestingly, I think a while back, I told a group of people that the cyber criminals in Nigeria are not as, let me say, as technical as some of the cyber criminals we have in places like Russia, China, and even in the US. Largely, more of even if you look at some of the biggest crimes, some of the biggest cyber criminal syndicates of Nigerian origin that has been kidnapped, that has been arrested, or that has been jailed over the years, we realize that largely based on phishing. Okay, so now email compromise, business email compromise is probably one of the leading. We also have phishing via SMS, and also private email compromises, because most of the time when your identity is stolen, meaning that if, for example, you lose your email address to a cyber criminal, or take for example, you probably lose your phone number or you lose your phone to maybe say like a criminal, for example. It's easy for them to proceed to using your SIM card for various crime. Not
And,
even
and, and I was
just
going to ask you, how is that done? And how can people actually protect themselves from that? Because it's becoming common. I mean, that aspect of it that you just talked about, using people's phone numbers, extracting their BVNs, and using that to transfer money from their accounts to what some people have described as untraceable accounts. I just don't understand that.
And that's why I said that we're not doing enough to look into some of these cases, and that's where these crimes continue to flourish. There's nothing like untraceable accounts. Even in America, where we have more sophisticated systems, we've had one of the best, some of the best hackers in the world being arrested by FBI, largely because they kept on looking into them. It could take 3 years, could take 4 years, could take 5 years, but they'll continue to look into you until you make a mistake and they will get you. So, but what we have here is we don't stay enough on some of these cases to get a resolution from these cases, and that was why it continues to grow. Now, in terms of how people can protect themselves, the first thing is usually, okay, now there are two areas that I would say that generally people get attacked. Is number one, through their email addresses. When you get an email, it's always proper or always good that you do a review of the email, especially if the email contains a link that you have to click and take you to another website or take you to another platform entirely. For example, you can get an email from, like, say, a bank now that your bank account will be blocked if you don't update maybe your NIM number or your BVN number. Now, a lot of people, out of panic or out of agitation, they don't think it through. They just click on it and they start asking you questions. Okay, submit your card number, submit your the name on your card, the number on your card, and you start submitting all these things and you submit, and once you submit it in less than 20-30 minutes, your account is gone and you keep wondering what happened and all that. So the first thing is, when you get an email and it's probably has a link that you need to click on, first double check where the email address is coming from. Double check. And if you are not sure about it, if it's a banking this thing, if they are impersonating a particular institution, it might be a bank, it might even be your email service provider. So take, for example, you're using Gmail now, they can say your Gmail account will be blocked, this and that and that and that. Now, if you are not sure of the email, it's better you don't act on the email and you contact the service provider, meaning that you contact the service. So if it's your bank, reach out to your bank and ask them questions. Oh, this is the issue I have. Is this thing true? Is it not true? So you can get some form of clarification. And in some other cases, we have cases, for example, when you lose your mobile phone, maybe they take your mobile phone and they use your SIM to probably commit some of this crime. Now, the first thing I would advise most people should do is when you lose your mobile phone, there are two things you should quickly do. Is number one, immediately call your bank to block all transactions on their accounts. So the account that you feel you probably have enough money on it, we can probably just call the bank straight away to probably just block all transactions on the account. So depending on the day, if it's during the week, you can quickly just run into any of the banks, any of the branches to make a complaint, and they can help you do this immediately. And if it's during the weekends, you can always call their customer care service to help you sort this out. And I know that some of the banks they also have USSD code now that you can use to block transactions on your accounts. So which is something that everybody should also pay attention to. So even if you can't do it either by going to the branch or by calling, you could as well do it via SMS code. I know there's a SMS code.
Is it enough? Is it enough, for instance? Is it possible to prevent your SIM card being used if you password the SIM card? Is it possible for these criminals to also break the password on the SIM card and get into it?
Yeah, we are talking about technology here. Even the biggest countries in the world, and even the biggest tech companies in the world, with some of the smartest people in the world, they still fall victim of these things. A very good example is the recent Microsoft crisis, where they hacked Microsoft's a lot of Microsoft service, down to even getting some of the source code or some of their softwares through a third-party service. Okay, so Like I said, it's not, while I understand that technology is there, but technology is not always foolproof.
That's
People
true.
would always find a way around everything. So, but the important thing is, while people keep finding a way around it, we on the other side, which is the good side, we should also, the same way the criminals are waking up late at night trying to find ways around everything. It's also for security professionals and cyber security professionals also keep trying to track, okay, what are being done, what are the new ways by which these guys are trying to get into the system. Because no matter what you do, no matter how secure you call the system, there is not always foolproof. But the important thing is, when an attack happens, how do you respond to it? I think that's where the key thing is. So that if you respond very fast and you respond very efficiently, and you stop the attack, then you can sit back and say, okay, how did this attack occur? So we have what we call zero-day vulnerability. The zero-day vulnerability is a vulnerability you don't even know exists that is used against you. So take, for example, like what happened to Microsoft. It was a zero-day attack from a third-party vendor, not even them, but they were able to use that to send updates. Like they were able to hijack the update process of this third-party software and injected malware into this update and send it out to various vendors across the world. And with this, they're able to penetrate a whole lot of services, even to American government institutions. They're able to penetrate into these places to get information. So, but the key point is, how did the country respond? That's the issue. Now, once it was detected, they responded swiftly and were able to start tracking, okay, what happened, how did it happen, how can we prevent this from happening in future? So these are ways by which we can mitigate some of this crisis if we put the right measures in place.
Adedoyin, your cybersecurity expert, and of course, the CEO of Blue Rave Limited. Thank you very much for joining us on the program and for sharing that insights with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll take a short break now and we'll be right back.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places: the Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On Deji360, we give you a complete dose of everything: opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians are saying in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
Deji360, dissecting the issues.
Now, just before we end the program, there's something I really want to talk about. About 2 weeks ago, I did raise the issue of the governor of Ondo State, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, breaking his promise to pay the WAEC fee of students in public schools in that state. Well, there's now a new development on the issue. The governor has now directed the payment of the fees for the 25,736 students who are due to write the WAEC exam. This is a very positive and laudable development, and it clearly demonstrates that the governor, that's Akeredolu now, actually listens. And that's one of the hallmarks of a good leader. A good leader should never make a promise they cannot or do not intend to keep. Thank you, Mr. Governor, for keeping the promise, even in the face of the present difficulties. But one more thing, Your Excellency, we want you to go a step further and order the principals of public schools in the state to refund the monies they had already collected from the students for the WAEC exam. A huge number of students had already paid the fee before now. And if there's no directive from you, Mr. Governor, for these monies to be refunded, I can assure you some schools or principals will not refund the money. And that will essentially defeat the very purpose for which you chose to pay the fees in the first place. And to be candid, the parents of these students can do a lot with that money right now. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Governor, for listening and paying the fees. And to the 25,736 students of Ondo State who will be benefiting from this initiative, all I want to say to you is this: go and excel in the exam. Make the best of this opportunity. Don't waste it. make your parents and guardians proud. God bless Ondo State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.